discussing the universe's most abundant element, not COVID variants, but hydrogen. And to talk us about the element and the investing opportunities and pitfalls, we're joined by Derren Nathan, Director of Research at Hybridan and author of 50 Shades of Hydrogen. So, Derren, 50 Shades of Hydrogen, which made me chuckle, but your report alerted me to the different shades in terms of hydrogen's colour palette, sort of blue and grey hydrogen. Talk me through the difference.
It's not like hydrogen hasn't been used in our universe before. The uses are evolving, but predominantly up to now, it's been used as a refining chemical in the petrochemical industry, and it's actually been derived from petrochemicals. So that has a carbon footprint of its own. Most of the interest at the moment is in using hydrogen as an energy vector and helping in the path to net zero. And I think the goal is to get as much of that hydrogen to be as green as possible, so to have zero carbon footprint. So grey is anything that's derived from the likes of coal and methane, natural gas. Green hydrogen can be split from water using electricity, preferably derived by wind or solar. Then in the middle you have, sort of purple, which is nuclear. It's zero carbon, but it has its own worries with it. So there's all sorts. There's probably more if you could find it, such as I think solar can be called yellow and coal can be brown. But I think the only other one that of real interest is blue, which is the real hybrid production method where you use fossil fuels, but you offset that carbon production by storing the carbon.
So in the race to get to net zero, hydrogen versus battery technology, is there a place for both?
I think there is really, and batteries I think are already coming out as the winner in the powertrains for light vehicles, so the cars that you and I might drive. But hydrogen, due to various properties in terms of how quick it is to refuel, the sort of range, and the fact that it needs quite a lot of space actually to be stored, it's lending itself more to perhaps heavy duty applications. So that might be trucking, shipping, industry, difficult to decarbonise vectors. You see Rio Tinto looking at using hydrogen in its aluminium refining plants. You see some of the steel manufacturers looking to put it in their blast furnaces instead of coal. So there is definitely a move up to the heavy duty big industry players.
So let's talk about the industry players and the investable opportunities, because one of the front runners was ITM Energy, perhaps the highest profile pure play hydrogen company. So talk to me about ITM Energy. Have they set the blueprint for their peers to follow?
Yeah, well, I think you have to just be careful who's doing what. They're not a hydrogen producer, they're an enabler. So they produce electrolyzers, which is the main gizmo you need to produce green hydrogen or any hydrogen from water using electricity. And they have recently raised 250 million to build, I think it's the world's biggest electrolyzer plant. The historical revenues still have some catching up to do with the ratings, so we'll have to see that. But they've got very good engineering partners in the likes of Linds, and they are getting investor backing. So yes, they are a trailblazer in the space.
So would you say that they're getting more attention from institutional or retail investors?
I think there's a bit of both, really. Certainly, you know, you see some flow, and they do get out there connecting with retail investors. It's not one that we've actually acted for at Hybridan, but I understand there was good institutional backing for the last placing.
So your research note, it's over 40 pages. If it had been 50 pages, that would have been spectacular to go with the title of your research.
Should have added some spaces.
But there was lots of pretty pictures. However, there were lots of other companies in addition to ITM Energy. So which other companies within the hydrogen universe warrant special attention?
I think there's lots of interesting ones. I might even mention one that didn't enter the report, but Invinity, you know, it's not really touting itself as a hydrogen play. They're actually more on the battery side in energy storage, but they are actually doing a combined project, tidal, to produce green hydrogen, and then actually using that green hydrogen to produce energy, which they'll store so they can put it into the grid at will. I think you've got to look at some of the fuel cell players. So these are the guys that actually turn hydrogen back into electricity. We talked about shipping. AFC Energy is, they've got lots going on in the alkaline fuel cell space, but they're actually looking at enabling big ships to have hydrogen powered engines. There was an announcement on that this week. G-Tech is interesting, actually. They are providing hydrogen hubs. The first one at Shoreham Harbour, it's through one of their subsidiaries. I forget the name, but they're going to do a big hydrogen production and storage facility there. And then you need to look at companies that are reinventing themselves, like Oracle Power, which had, you know, big coal ambitions. They're now actually got, you know, gold mining, but they're actually looking at doing a green energy, green hydrogen production facility in Pakistan. So, you know, it is a global phenomenon. We're seeing lots of governments looking to invest. They need to. The cost of green hydrogen needs to come down so that it does become viable. And it's, you know, I suspect there will be lots of subsidies to make this happen, in the same way that green energy, you know, wind power, solar power needed lots of incentives to get on track and to start competing with more conventional sources of energy.
Now, there was a note of caution within your research note, and you've written, obviously, investors must also be wary of the companies merely trying to ride the latest wave with ESG disclosures already having heralded the phenomenon of greenwashing.
That's right, and I think actually, you know, it's almost a large cap, small cap playoff, because large caps, you know, they can get the attention of the ESG ratings agencies, you know, by saying, okay, we've got 50% ladies on our board, and putting some double glazing, and we're using a green energy provider. But actually, it's the small caps who are driving the technological innovation that is required to actually get the world more sustainable. So I think ESG and impact investors should not overlook the smaller cap universe.
So what's necessary for the hydrogen economy to reach its full potential?
It's a little bit chicken and egg, because you know, the green hydrogen producers might be thinking, is there the demand for it, and the you know, the potential users of hydrogen are saying, well, is there going to be enough of the stuff produced? So really, I think a bit of government intervention, which we are seeing, is going to get the ball rolling on this. In the US, of all places, we're seeing what's called the hydrogen shot, which aims to get the cost of green hydrogen per kilo So 1 kilo, $1 in 1 decade, and it's sort of $3 to $8 per kilo at the moment, as per estimates. Grey hydrogen estimated at about $1 to $2, but actually, if you see gas prices and what's happening to that, and with that being the main input for grey hydrogen, hopefully we'll see green hydrogen overtake grey hydrogen on the way down.
So it sounds like the potential scale of the opportunity is enormous. So obviously there's no shortage of ways to play the hydrogen sector. So how many different elements are there within the hydrogen play in terms of, I'm thinking, well, one is obviously production.
Yeah, and I don't think I've necessarily identified them all, but you know, there's production, so people actually looking to set up hydrogen production plants, be that green or blue, as I mentioned, Oracle Power looking at doing it, Chariot, which is a diversified energy company, but then you've got the hydrogen production technology such as ITM. Then you've got you know, sort of hybrids of that, such as people looking to create hydrogen from waste, and there's 2 big players, Equitech, who are mentioned in the report, and Powerhouse Energy, not mentioned in the report, but equally as bigger player. Then of course you've got the people who can convert hydrogen into energy, like AFC Energy, Ceres, Proton Motor Power Systems doing it in cars, infrastructure, I mentioned GTech, and then there's, you know, a whole miscellaneous array of companies, such as Pressure Technologies, who make storage vessels for hydrogen, Invinity, who I mentioned. There are a number of hydrogen investment funds, or funds that are at least part looking at it, such as Hydrogen One Capital Growth, which IPO'd not so long ago. And then of course you've got the users. So yeah, I mentioned Rio Tinto and some of the steel producers. And then of course you've got consultants like Wood Group, who put on a you know, quite a big webinar on it the other day, and enablers such as Eurowag, quite a new IPO, who you know, it's software actually, and helping to make the trucking industry more efficient, but it's actually by integrating the hydrogen fueling stations within that, people who have fleets of trucks can actually see where they can refuel, because it's quite low at the moment. You know, if you've got an electric vehicle, you can plan a long route. Hydrogen, it's quite difficult at the moment, and that needs to start getting there. So we need to see the fueling stations rolling out across the UK and the world.
Thank you very much. Well, Derren, thank you very much for enabling me to understand a little bit more about the hydrogen universe. You're a very insightful and entertaining writer. I mean, 50 Shades of Hydrogen. How will any of us ever forget that title? Derren Nathan, Director of Research at Hybridan. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Sarah.